watched the trailer for today. Looks hilarious. You'll hear about these projects and lots more in the upcoming conversation, which is hosted by a current cinema and TV arts student, Anthony Fuentes. So with that, I just want to say thanks to John and Theresa for being here. Thanks to Anthony for hosting, and thanks to you for watching. So Anthony, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. Hi, everyone. As Eric said, my name is Anthony Fuentes. I am a senior cinema and television arts major focusing on directing, producing, and assistant directing. I'm super excited to get the chance to interview some successful alumni. So John and Theresa, before we get into it, I'll just start by asking you to each introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay. I'm Theresa. I'm a production designer. I was born and raised in Chicago and went to Columbia, and then moved out to Los Angeles with John when we graduated. I don't know what else to tell you about. That's kind of the basics.
I'm John Guleserian. I'm a cinematographer. Was born in Chicago, raised in Detroit, and then went back to Chicago to go to Columbia, which is where I met Theresa.
Awesome. So obviously both of you are Columbia alumni. So could you tell me a little bit about what your Columbia experience was like while you were here? I heard that you both worked at the Cage. So can you tell me a little bit about what your experiences were like while you were here?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I was at Columbia before Theresa. I graduated in 2000. I worked in the Cage while I was a student. Basically, like, you know, because I knew that I could sort of get access to things and meet people and whatever. And I think that, like, the nice thing about doing that was that I met everybody. Like, I knew everybody. Everybody came through there. It's where I met the directors that I worked with, like, on the first short films that I ever shot. I definitely met, like, I got to meet undergrads and grad students. And I just started saying I was a cinematographer. And then, like, people started asking me to shoot their movies just because we were friendly. And then, that's where it kind of started. And then I actually ran the Cage, after I graduated, and that's where I met Theresa.
Yeah, I'm 6 years younger than him. So I went to Columbia for animation, actually, traditional animation, and very early on, I really loved it, but I started to get a little bit lonely, and you have to take a Tech 1 class in animation. So I did that, and I met a bunch of people who were asking me to kind of do art department for them, and I started to be interested in that. And the same time, my friend from Tech 1 invited me to work in the Cage with him. He was like, come on, it's like the best. You get to meet everybody and like all the things that John's saying. So I worked in the Cage as a TA at like 19 and met him and met every teacher that I wouldn't have had, every grad student, everyone. It's a very similar experience to John, like very formative, like I was never going to take any of the cameras classes, but Cindy Herrick was like a huge mentor for me because I worked in proximity to her. And Tony Agnew, who I never had as an actual teacher, was like extremely influential to me. So many other people who I met through there. So then we met, and then for my Tech 2, I wanted to know if John would shoot it for me because he was fancy at that point and was very good. And he did, and and then we became a couple, and then ultimately we moved to LA.
So you guys mentioned a little bit about like connections that you made at Columbia. Were there any connections that you made with fellow students or alumni or faculty with people that you're still currently working with now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Armando Ballesteros, who is still, like, we still work together. He's a gaffer on, even the most recent movie that we just did, Happiest Season, and we've done a bunch of other movies together. We met at Columbia. We've been, I worked on his movies that he was shooting, and he worked on mine, and we went to AFI together, and you know, both became cinematographers. He, you know, has a great talent as a gaffer and does it for a lot of like movies now and TV shows. And, you know, we work together all the time still.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many people that we come across in regular life that are either from like our era or after us. But Armando in particular was my friend before I knew, we were friends with Armando independently of each other. And like the three of us kind of came together, and I still make movies with Armando outside of John, and like we all kind of switched together. And there, like we said, a million people in between there. But teacher-wise, like still really close with Cindy and a number of other people. Jeremy Braverman we stay in touch with. There's a lot of people.
Also, you know, I did Candyman in Chicago last summer, about a year ago. And I mean, basically the entire crew was Columbia.
Oh, and Chris.
Yeah, Chris Rajano did second unit for us, and you know, and he actually ended up shooting the reshoots because I couldn't make it out there because the whole COVID thing was starting, and
Weird.
yeah, like Adaye was my gaffer, and you know, I mean, pretty much everybody went to Columbia. Everybody on the entire crew went to Columbia. It was, yeah.
People still call us when we have nothing to do with the movie, like all the time. And they're like, we're going to Chicago. Give us a list of everyone you've ever met from there. It's really nice.
It's amazing. So you briefly mentioned AFI. So after graduating Columbia, you both decided to go to graduate school at the American Film Institute. What made you decide to take the grad school path instead of just like jumping right into the industry?
Well, John really was more focused on it originally than I Columbia for me was very much like a figuring out who I want to be, what kind of filmmaker I am. John was like singularly focused. So you can talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Columbia because I wanted to go to AFI. Like, I knew when I was in high school that there were cinematographers that had gone to Columbia and then AFI. And I think that's still a thing that like happens constantly, like every year, actually, like, you know, most years when there's a new class coming in, I get contacted by whoever the new cinematographers are that are going into AFI from Columbia. Usually that connection is made through Cynthia still. You know, like, it's always been a thing. So I knew I wanted to do that, and I was pretty focused on it. But your path was a little different.
Yeah, for me, it was like I was discovering that I wanted to be a production designer. John was integral in me like figuring out how to accomplish that and like pushing me towards just like tell everybody that you are one, which is literally what I just did. He made me business cards that said I was a production designer. We just gave them out to everybody, and I started doing grad projects. And because I had become friends with Cindy, I would talk to her just about regular life and like my hopes and dreams and whatever. And she was very close with John. She's like, I know you guys are moving to LA together. Do you know that AFI has a production design program? And I was like, no. And so I applied just to see what would happen, and I got in too. So I was 1 year behind him. And then for me, that was like, everything had clicked in at that point. I had met Karen Fletcher at Columbia. There used to only be one production design class, and she was really encouraging me, and all those things kind of swirled together. And then when I finally got to Columbia, I became as focused as John was, basically.
So I have a question for John. So after graduating, how did you manage to break into the industry? You've gotten to work on so many different studio and independent films. More recently, you just mentioned Candyman from Jordan Peele's production company. Did that mean having to climb the industry ladder by like working a lot of grip and electric jobs? Can you just tell us a little bit about that process?
Sure, yeah. I am terrible at grip and electric jobs. I actually like did one, like a grip job after I finished AFI, and I got fired. Like, like the DP called me after the first day at home and was like, "Don't come back tomorrow." So you know, I mean, like there's just a point where you're like, obviously you have to make money, but you just decide like, okay, I guess this is like, I'm gonna only be a DP now. I think I mentioned earlier, and you said like, you know, it was actually Pete Hartel who told me that at Columbia. He's like, if you want to be a cinematographer, start saying that you're a cinematographer. And you hear that from a lot of people, like that, you know, once somebody knows you as something, that it's going to be very hard for them to know you as something else.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a very hard lesson for me to like absorb once we got out of AFI. Like I said, I'm younger than him, and I have not been as focused on this career path this long. So I kept having the instinct to like do other jobs at first. Like I was a construction coordinator. That's a terrible idea. But like he kept encouraging me, and other people in our lives kept encouraging us to just, it's a two-part thing. You have to say, I'm a production designer only, and be willing to work at a flower shop on the side, which I did, to like support your bills so that you can get through. Tell no one that you're doing it, but you know, you're a production designer. And then the second part of it is like do massive amounts of work and research to then not be an actual imposter. Like you have to show up with the skills and the ability to, you know, perform on the fact that you're saying that you are that thing. But having a lot of confidence in just saying it gets you into a lot of rooms.
Yeah.
Really.
And it wasn't like features right away either. Like when you know, like there was a lot of stuff that sort of, you know, before that, like I did a lot of sketch comedy. Yeah. Like I did Tim and Eric. We did some work for Disney for a long time, like for, you know, little sketch comedy things. And
well, we did 2 features together like immediately after school, actually. So
that's
this
true.
is something,
yeah, little features.
Yeah, this is something that we talk about a lot with other like private mentees and stuff that we have, is like, it's very easy to get hung up on like what the job is right away. Like, oh, I did a feature. It went to Slam Dance or Sundance or whatever, which our very first feature did. But it didn't matter. We just had to practice and practice and practice. So we did 2 features. One was a travel job. It felt kind of like glamorous. One was kind of successful indie. And then for 4 years after that, we worked at like Tim and Eric or Disney or whatever, doing like shorts, essentially like decent budgeted shorts. And
like occasional commercials and things
yeah.
like that, but nothing like, you know, nothing. I know after we did our first 2, like the first movie we did was actually with, you know, somebody that I had gone to AFI with that we both knew. And it didn't really, I mean, it went to like Slam Dance or whatever, but while we were like prepping that movie, we were like, we had like a poker game at our house, and like some like friends came over and somebody brought a friend, and we were like talking about how we were working on a movie, and he was like, oh, well, I'm making a movie soon. Do you want to work on my movie? And then, you know,
yeah.
we were like, sure. Yeah, we do that. And then, and so it just happened that we did like one movie. It was a very small movie in LA, and then we did another very small movie in Seattle, which was like, it was just lucky. But then I didn't make another movie for 2 years, maybe more.
And
even.
for me, even longer. I think it was 3 or 4.
Yeah.
We were technically doing successful things in the interim, but the very long answer to your question is that neither of us did do any like gripping or set decorating or anything like that.
But also like just, you know, like for, you know, everyone's path is different, you know. I think it's really just about like chipping away at it, and like whatever opportunity you can find, you should, you know, pursue. Like, and if it seems like something, you know, and it also just helps to like form relationships with people in any way, like, like whether it's at school or while you're making a movie, like, you know, you may meet somebody else who's making a movie.
That's the like definitive traceable thing that we always go back to and talk to everybody about is, first of all, there were 2 of us, get a buddy, and you're doubling your contacts, not on purpose, it just was happening that way. But we also were like social and excited and like really engaging with every single person around us to be like, hi, we want to make movies. Hi, we love to make movies. Do you want to come to our house and play poker every single week with a bunch of people who make movies, which we did for like
Yeah.
6 years we had that game every week, and so many different people came in. Actors started showing, like people were making lifelong connections. We, again, not on purpose, this was instinctual, but that was like extremely formative both at Columbia and after just friendships. Yeah.
And you asked about Candyman, like that's like similarly with that movie, just somebody I went to AFI with, like was the line producer on that movie, and they got into a situation where they had a cinematographer on it. It wasn't working out. You know, they still had a certain amount of prep time left, and so they decided to make a change. And he just like put my, like I hadn't talked to the guy in 15 years, and he just wrote my name on a Post-it and put it on like with all the other ones. And then, you know, people were like, oh yeah, I heard of him, or I know who he is, or whatever. And then it just ended up, I got a call, and then I met the director, and then I was the one who got hired, you know? It's like, that's just how it happens. And that was, you know, it wasn't even on my radar as a movie that I could have done. Like, I had never done a horror film, but, you know?
Except for Zombies of Mass Destruction, which we both did. Don't rent it.
It's a comedy. That's a comedy.
That's awesome. That's great. Can you just tell John, I'm a huge fan of Jordan Peele's work, and I think he's just a huge inspiration for filmmakers who want to tell stories from a new perspective. And he's just like really leading the way in Hollywood in terms of diversity. So can you tell us a little bit about working on that film?
Sure, yeah. I mean, you know, Nia DaCosta was the director. Jordan was the producer. I didn't actually meet Jordan until like halfway through filming, because he was pretty much leaving us, you know, with, you know, one of his producers and Nia, and, you know, to make the movie. But, you know, I mean, it was a great opportunity. I think the movie's going to be great. Like, and it's so unique. It's like, and like Theresa was a bigger fan of the original than I was. And because being like, having grown up in Chicago and whatever. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like, I think you told me you read today that they pushed the release date again, so it's not going to come out till October now. But I think it's going to be a great movie. It was a great experience for sure. Like all around, it's just like such good writing and like amazing performances. Nia's, you know, one of the best directors I've ever worked with, and I'm really proud of it.
As far as facilitating like the diversity of things, though, I mean, Nia in and of herself is a diverse voice that hasn't had an opportunity, or should have had way. She's like a force and incredible talent when you meet her. And, you know, I'm so excited that she's doing this, but when you do meet her, you're like, why isn't everyone like this? This is like, everyone should get an opportunity. And I mean, it's your movie, I don't want to speak for you, but she like fiercely fought for incredible choices the whole way down the line. Every time he would show me something, or like I'd see footage from the day or whatever, I was like, what? This is amazing, you know, like just truly purposeful content that you guys are making.
And from my perspective, it like, I saw that like, you know, Monkey Paw is that company that like they're creating a situation where somebody with a voice can, you know, thrive. And it's, you know, and I think that just is like great filmmaking. It's like, you know, just like putting somebody in a place where they have the freedom to do their thing and you know, and the resources to do it, you know, and smartly picking Nia, who, you know, you're going to hear a lot from for a long time. Like,
yeah. Great. Thank you so much. So now switching gears a little bit, a question for Theresa. As student filmmakers, we work with really low budgets. Can you tell us about a time where, because of budgetary restrictions or something else out of your control, you had to rethink your initial plan or design? I
mean, being a professional production designer means that you're going to spend, at least as far as everyone I know so far, you're going to spend 10 years trying to figure out how to make a movie look like it has a plan with basically no money. And ways that I have figured out to do that, like a good example is this movie called The One I Love that I did. It's a, Charlie McDowell directed it, who was a friend from AFI. Mark Duplass and I met on that film and have gone on to make lots of movies together. It was a $150,000 feature. And that's, you know, that's, it can produce really wonderful independent film, but not any that has a visual story being told. So we needed it to have a story because of the content. You needed to really, really understand where each character was for the whole function of the movie. There were like two different universes going on kind of. And so we did clever things that I've applied to many other small budget things, like hyper controlling your color palette. Like one house, we recovered. When I say we, I mean I was every single job on that movie, the only crew member. But I had like 3 weeks to myself in the house that we were going to shoot in. So I covered every single piece of furniture with black and white fabric and eliminated all color from that spot. And I begged Universal Studios to give me a rental of as many things as I could put in my car, which they let me. And I kept driving things up to Ojai myself. And then the other house, I like temporarily wallpapered with like blushes and color, you know, warm, loving colors, and gave the movie a distinct look. Like articles were written about it. It's so crazy. And we had nothing, but we just made the choice, you know, we needed it for the story, and we made a choice of how to accomplish it on our teeny tiny budget. And I have done that many, many times.
Yeah, thank you. Now a question for John. So I've noticed a trend recently in a lot of films and TV shows. It's this carnival trend. I feel like every single coming of age movie that I've seen in the last year has some carnival scene with like a Ferris wheel. And Love, Simon was one of those first movies that I saw that had that trend. Can you tell us about being the DP for that film and what it's like having to control all the lighting and camera work in that kind of environment with just so many moving parts?
Yes, I love this question. I mean, it was difficult. Like, there's so much planning went into that scene, so much planning. I mean, we built that whole, I didn't build it, but the art department built that whole carnival in a park. And we did it from scratch. Like, we went through so many different Ferris wheels until we found the right Ferris wheel. Like, you know, because it's like availability and how big was it going to be and what are the light bulbs like. And I remember, like, we shot it towards the end of the schedule. I know my gaffer, Robert Soretta, and I, like, went out, like, to these, like, after work a lot of times to these big, like, carnival rental yards that were, like, you know, like, on the outskirts of Atlanta, and would have them turn on a Ferris wheel for us so we could, like, shoot a test of it, see if the lights were going to flicker. And, like, we didn't want any, like, we were like really adamant we didn't want the bulbs to be LED, and we didn't want, you know. And then for the rest of the carnival, like, same thing, like, you know, that, like, they were all, like, everything was chosen so that they'd have incandescent bulbs. And, you know, at some point though, like, I remember Aaron, the production designer, being like, we like he couldn't get enough like old school light bulbs. So he's like, for like the deep background, he's like, I have to use LEDs. Like, can we just test a bunch of them? And we just tested like hundreds of strands of lights until we found the ones that were the right color and that wouldn't flicker and wouldn't, because the problem that you get into, not to get too like far into the weeds about technical stuff, is like, it's like just a balancing act. If you have like two different kinds of light bulbs that flicker, like, you know, you're not going to ever find like a shutter speed that works for all of them. And, you know, and we want the brightness and the color and everything. So every single bulb in there, there's like millions of little light bulbs all around. Like we in some way pick them, like a lot of it in bulk, like, you know, hundreds of strands of these particular things or whatever. Yeah, and then it was all placed like in a way so that like when they're at the top of that Ferris wheel, like they're really at the top of that Ferris wheel. Like we were shooting them from like a 50-foot techno crane, and you know, and at like all those angles were chosen ahead of time. Like, you know, I think we went out there with a drone actually to figure out. Yeah, we definitely did. We went out there with a drone to see like what we were going to see in the distance at the heights, and then you know, things were just placed in order. You know, so all those frames were really picked well, and Greg Berlanti and I fought to be able to shoot that sequence over 2 nights instead of 1 night. Like, I think, like, you know, I remember him saying, like, I'm going to pay for it myself, like just another day of shooting so that we can have 2 nights for the most important scene in the movie.
He didn't have to, did he?
No, I don't think so. Maybe he did. I don't know. But that's how passionate he was about, like, making sure that scene was, you know, as good as it could be. But I think to do it right, to answer your question, is you should control everything if you can. You know, you're not going to walk into a, like, you know, carnival location that's going to work for you for the most, like, that's, you know, that's going to be, you know, where you want it to be, and perfect, everything's going to be, like, you know, that was all, like, so much planning went into, like, modeling in 3D where the Ferris wheel was going to be and where the camera, you know, like, all of that was very, very planned.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So this is a good time for us to go ahead and launch our poll to find out what the makeup of our audience is. So please go ahead and fill out that poll and let us know what categories you fit into. So we'll revisit that in a little bit.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Oh, we get to answer?
Yeah.
I guess so.
Other.
There's like this.
Yeah, how do we, we'll say production designer.
It's gonna be
Oh, we can't answer it.
Oh yeah, I can't answer either.
It says can't vote. It says very big. You can't vote.
All right,
we had a similar situation to the carnival thing on the movie we just did, Happiest Season. We were shooting a Christmas movie, and we needed like a very, very long, many block stretch of Christmas lights up on houses, and they purposely shot the movie at Christmas, hoping that we would get tea. But everyone's Christmas lights are like crazy LED, so we had to actually start from scratch and do, you know, Griswold an entire neighborhood.
And then for weather reasons, they pulled it up 2 days, and like which we learned the day before, I believe.
Yeah.
And I know Armando, our gaffer, was like, he was out there for like 24 hours making sure all those lights were on.
Us 3 Columbia College kids really went through it on that set.
Because like people like us forget, like we say like, there's gonna be lights over here and lights over there and like everything, and somebody has to run extension cords for all that stuff too, and make sure that there's enough power there and all of that, you know.
Yeah.
So when you think you have 3 more days to do it, and all of a sudden you have, you know, 1, then that's a problem.
Definitely. So now I have a question for both of you. So based on your filmographies, I can see an array of both comedic and dramatic projects. How differently do you approach a dramatic project in comparison to a comedic one? And could you give us some examples of some things that you've worked on? And we can start with Theresa.
I work on a lot of comedy. I have like a pretty strong thing that I say to all my crew whenever they start with me, like any new art department. We're not funny, they're funny. We're not making the jokes, they're making the jokes. No one's funnier than Seth Rogen. Certainly no one in this art department. So don't think that you're gonna like sneak in a joke that will like help the film. Being a production designer's job is to make the world feel real. Even if it's a heightened world, it's a heightened reality, like to ground the universe so that their characters seem extra, whatever it is that they're trying to do is the best way to do our job. There are some really successful examples of not doing that, like the first things that come to mind are like Dumb and Dumber. But largely, like I always point to Ghostbusters, the original, that firehouse, even their logo, their television advertisements, everything is as real as could be. They might as well be exterminators. Mm-hmm. And that is just like incredibly thoughtful production design going on a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
John, do you want to add anything to that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I approach them the same way. I like, you know, I'm definitely not going to do anything that I think is funny. But you know,
It's funny then.
What's that?
You are funny.
Yeah, but I'm not supposed to be. So I approach them the same way. Like you know, I always start a project like gathering references and things like that. I think in general they're going to end up looking different, but you approach any project based on first of all, the story, of course, and then, you know, you figure out, okay, what's the tone of this movie, like how, like, and you feel out references and things, like how much color is there, how like bright is it, how, like, you know, those basic things that you start with, and it all sort of like, you know, becomes something. I also like to think that, like, you know, I wouldn't pick a movie unless it had a really good story. Rather, you know, even if it's a comedy, a drama, a horror film, whatever, it needs to have a great story. So that's the heart of it, always.
John,
That's the heart of it for me, like 75% of the time.
John, could you tell us a little bit about, because you just got off working on American Pickle, and so that's a comedy, and it does seem a little bit stylized. I watched the trailer actually a couple days ago, so could you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very difficult project. We actually shot that movie in the winter of 2018, and it's not coming out till now, you know, for a variety of reasons. I think there, you know, like, I think COVID had a little bit to do with it, like, you know, coming out now, actually. But you know, I think it took a long time to finish because it's a movie with Seth Rogen where he plays two parts. And you know, it was like a lot of visual effects, and yeah, it was very difficult. It was just like, pulling that off was really, really hard. Like, you know, usually if you're shooting a movie I've done like various scenes where people play two parts, mostly in like sketch comedy and whatever. And like, you know, generally what you do is like they play the one part, you keep the camera where it is, then they change over, and then they play the other part, right? Mm-hmm. So in this, like, two things, like Seth didn't want to have a fake beard and one of the characters has a beard, and he didn't want to have to play you know, both parts back to back, because it's like he'd have to switch between this character then this character, and what, you know, and just performance wise that would be, you know, not great. So we shot everything separately. So we shot the whole movie with him as one character, and then we went back and we shot the whole movie again with him as the other character, and we used various techniques to do that, you know. But the most common thing we did was we got the camera like exactly back into the same place, like every single time. We had like literally like 150 pages of notes a day, like just for like lighting and camera notes, and like all the sets we like would mark up in like infrared pen, like, and like, you know, where the camera was, what the height of the camera, like all that stuff, like, so that when we went back we could like find them. So if you like walked around the set at the end with like an infrared light, there were just like notes like all over the set.
We actually went back to Pittsburgh to make a movie since then, and there are still the blue screws that you guys used all over Pittsburgh, like in the street.
Yeah, because
like, Pickle was here.
Yeah, whenever we were shooting, like, you know, it like on like city property or whatever, and we needed to mark a camera location, they would drill like a blue screw into the ground, like where it was, and I don't think they got taken out there. But yeah, it was just technically it was a really, really difficult movie, but it was great because Brandon Trost directed it. He's a cinematographer. It's his first movie directing, and it was just like, you know, such a pleasure to do, and also, you know, just to work with all those like comedic genius people, you know, it's always great.
Awesome. So you two have worked on various films together, Before We Go, The Overnight, among others. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like being a couple in the same industry? Have there ever been any times where you've butt heads on set for creative reasons?
You wanna go first?
Sure, yeah. You know, usually we end up working on a movie together because, you know, one of us is already there, and, you know, and there's been a few, like Happiest Season was one of the first times where somebody we didn't really know called and was like, oh, I want both of you to do this movie together. But like the overnight, like, you know, you knew Mark Duplass and you were going to do that movie, and then somehow it came up for me to do it as well. And, you know, I just agreed to do it before I even met the director, like, because she was doing it and I you know, wanted to do it. And before we go, I think I went in to interview for that. And I met Chris, and like, he was hiring production designers, and he didn't even really know what a production designer was. And he was like, should I meet your wife? I heard she's a production designer. And then, you know, they became best friends. You know, that's just how it happens. It's just one of us is already there.
Or even if we don't work on a movie together, that's how it happens. Like, he did Pickle because I'm friends with Brandon and Seth.
Yeah, true.
And
yeah.
then I did The High Note because Working Title loved him from About Time and trusted me. There's like lots and lots of crossover like that. But as far as like getting along on set, I suspect the reason why we don't have problems has a lot to do with the fact that we like became these things together. You know, like we went to Columbia together before either of us was a professional anything. We have the exact same language, every single same reference. We've watched every movie we've ever seen together, you know, like, and our perspective is the same. And we've been together for 18 years. It's like if you don't have a place, like a general respect in, you know, it just kind of transfers over. Also, our jobs are extremely complementary. There's not a lot. I have had a time or two of conflict with the cinematographer, but it's really, really rare. Like, your goals are complementary to each other, you know? Right.
I always feel like, too, whenever we work on movies together, like, and we did 2 seasons of a TV show together, like, it always ends up feeling like more of a family. Like, because I think the people who are willing to hire us together are people who, like, I mean, with friends from college, it was great. Like, it was, you know, the showrunners were husband and wife, Nick and Francesca, and like, you know, it just was like very, like, comfortable and nice. And same Happiest Season, like, same thing. Like, we just end up, like, I end up being more social on the movie, like, in between shooting as well. So that's always really nice.
Yeah.
And then also, like, we just always are talking about it, whatever it is, which is great. Like, I've done so many movies where I'm, like, scheduling meetings with the production designer because they're so busy and I don't get that much access to them. And, you know, you, like, just to be in the same place at the same time during prep is sometimes rare for a DP and a production designer. So when we're doing it together, it's just, there's always that, you know, like, you know, we're going out to eat every night and we're talking about the movie and we're like, so I think we're always like cautious as to not like go
excluding
rogue as well.
We're like really, really careful about that, which probably also helps not create conflict. We never have a conversation outside of something that the director knows or expects. It's always just about how to achieve something that we've already all agreed on. And if we haven't all talked about it, we talk to them about it first before we like get into it together.
So we'll just bring them in right away. Like, you know, like we're sitting in our apartment, like, you know, wherever we are, like having a conversation, and we'll just like, you know, call them and be like, oh, we want to talk to you about this thing. And
All right, so now I want to address the elephant in the room. Obviously, because of COVID, a lot of things in the industry are either changing or just completely put on hold. Were you working on anything when the pandemic first hit? If so, how did that go down?
We were 2 weeks away from shooting a movie together. It's a Judd Apatow movie with Billy Eichner as the lead. It's his first big rom-com. We're so excited about it. He has been a longtime collaborator of both of ours, and Nick Stoller, who's the director, also we've worked with for years and years. And it was like our family back together in Buffalo, New York, freezing, about to make this movie. And, you know, it became evident when Tom Hanks, the night that Tom Hanks announced that he had COVID, we got a phone call from our producers that was like, okay, we're probably gonna go home. And since then, we've stayed in very close contact with them, but it looks like that project's probably pushing like everything else. Anything that, you know, it has like 200 or 300 extras in the majority of the scenes. There's no way to do that safely, and you don't want to undercut the movie by not doing it properly. So I don't want to speak for that. I'm sure that is an ever developing thing, but as far as we know right now, it's on hold. We've heard of lots of smaller things that are starting to try and figure out what to do. You made a short with Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was just like a, you know, friends thing, like just for fun. I mean, I think what's happening is it seems as though the movies that were about to go are not the ones that are going to come back right away, because those didn't have like social distancing and all of that in mind. And I think people are interested in keeping everybody safe. So I think a lot of movies and TV shows that are going to start up seem to be things that are able to be structured around, you know, what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, that's at least like the vibe I'm getting from things. I also think, you know, I think it's going to be slow. I think it's going to be, you know, I think people are going to feel things out on some smaller projects. And I mean, I know a lot of DPs who are shooting commercials again. Like I'm like, you know, starting to get scripts and whatever for little things. And also hearing from other people, like, you know, a DP friend of mine called and was like, oh, I'm doing a Netflix show that's starting next month in LA, and do you have any recommendations for crew members? And like, you know, stuff like that is happening. But it does sound like it's like, you know, just things that can be structured around what's going on.
In a lot of ways, it feels similar. In a lot of ways not, but in a lot of ways it feels similar to what we graduated out of AFI into, which was the writer's strike. And the thing that we definitely unknowingly learned during the writer's strike that we're applying just for like emotional well-being right now, and like talking to friends about and stuff, is like trying to remove your egos and your goals, your immediate career goals from this moment. Like, whatever you think you're building towards, whatever you imagine yourself doing at this particular point, wherever you are in your career, you have to just set it aside. If a job comes up, whatever the job is, and you need to pay your rent or take care of your family or whatever, and you can do it safely and you feel comfortable, then that is a job worth taking. And that is not how we have ever approached. We are extremely critical about whatever project we're going to do, and we're really stepping back from that right now and looking at it in so many different ways every time someone sends us a script or talks to us about a project.
Yeah, because you have like, not only like, you know, well, yeah, you want to get back to work, but also you want to make sure that when you're getting back to work, that it's a safe environment for not just you, but everybody involved. Yeah. You don't want to be part of something that, you know, is not going to be safe for people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and those are just considerations that we've never taken into, like, we're so material based with everything that we choose, that, you know, just a new way of thinking a little bit, like, you know, hopefully you get all the best of all worlds. But.
And I mean, as like an aspiring cinematographer or production designer, I can imagine that you want to be taking projects where you can like stretch yourself or like really apply like a big look or something, whatever. But that's not going to happen right now. Like, I can't even imagine going to a traditional prop house and like shopping the way that we would normally shop. Like, so many people are like close together in that process. I know that they're developing safe ways to do these things and whatever, but I would tell myself to like relax on that a little bit, and just whatever steps you can take is a good step to take.
Well, this has been great. Thank you both so much. I've had a great time talking with you both. I know
Thank you.
that we have some audience questions, so I'm going to turn it over to Sarah so that she can get us started with the Q&A.
Oh, great. We can answer all these
Please say hi to
questions. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, we do have we do have some. I'm just going to ask them, but if you see questions that you definitely want to jump in on, feel free. But I'm
This
just going to,
first question actually is from Dale Chapman, who was my
yes,
tech new teacher. That's great.
yeah, go for it. The question, you guys, is from Dale Chapman. It is, how hard is it to keep up with technological advances?
I mean, for me, it's so easy. It's just like the thing I'm a nerd about anyway. Like, I think, like a hard thing for me is to like not talk about technical stuff with people all the time who just don't want to hear it. So I just like literally like can sit around and read nerdy things all day and absorb it all. It's just always how I've been. It's like I was like a kid who like would get a new piece of software like and then read the whole manual and then just be like, oh yeah, I know how to do this, like
That's annoying, John.
and
That's not how everybody is.
and so yeah, it's not that difficult. I mean, I think you do have to keep up with everything though. You have to know what all the, for me it's just fun though, so it's like I need to know what all the new cameras are, what all the new lenses are, whatever, and I feel privileged to be in a position where like I can go into all the rental houses whenever I have time off and be like, okay, show me all the new stuff, I want to see what it is. And I think and I think for the most part I did that when I was a student too. Like you just create relationships with people who are going to have the things and then be able to see it and play with it. Getting your hands on technology is so important. Thank you, Dale. He was a great teacher, by the way. And Larry says hi, and I haven't seen Larry forever, but he's been our buddy forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's my buddy too. This other question is from Alexandra Burrow. She says, would you be able to describe some of your ideal qualities that you look for in a producer, and from your experience, what makes a producer not so great to work with?
I mean, my ideal qualities in a producer are somebody who cares about the story, cares about the project, wants to do it properly, like wants to like be able to make the movie. Obviously producers have financial considerations, and you have to be able to work with people because the budget is the budget. They can't like come up with other things. I think what makes a producer not so great is when they don't care about the safety of the crew, or they don't care about or they try to get you to do things the wrong way, and then you find out later like, hey, we were $1 million under budget, and you're like, well, why did we do all these things the wrong way? Like that happens quite a bit in the end. But I think, good material like usually finds good producers who can like help that material, and you just really have to, whether it's the creative producer or the, the people in charge of the money, like you just need to be able to collaborate with those people as well.
Yeah. For me, I have found over the years, I did not start out this way, but I choose projects as much for the producer as I do for the material. For production designers, it is your whole entire life, your relationship with them. You're working with a really big team on things that require a lot of safety, and it's every single day is a budget conversation and scope conversation. And the thing that I didn't know about being a production designer that I learned as I was doing it is that the scope of a film is often as big as you individually say that it is, which is a crazy power, and also can be a really big problem in your relationship with the producer. So I have learned how the best ways to communicate with people is, and people I work with over and over again. I try and stick with the same people because we have a lot of trust. Just tell me the truth. How much money do we have? I will stay within those parameters, and if I feel like this movie needs something that cannot fit within those parameters, I'm going to show you why I think it needs it and make my pitch to you, and then you decide if that's right or not. And the producers who have that kind of dialogue with whether it's the production designer or the rest of the crew are the producers who can get any crew member they want to do their films.
Yeah, especially where it occurs to me, like working in other cities, you really rely on your producers, your local producers there to help you like find the people locally who can do the things that you need them to do. So important.
Great. Lily Garcia Daly has a question for Theresa. Lily says, what are some skills to emphasize or portfolio pieces that are helpful to see to be hired in an art department like yours? And P.S. she loves your work on The One I Love.
Oh, thanks. So when I'm hiring someone to be in the art department, it is very similar to when I go in to, try and get a job as a production designer to producers or directors. It is as much about personality and presence as it is about the quality of your work. I think for the most part, if you're coming in for a job interview, the people who are interviewing you assume that you have the capability to do whatever job it is that you're saying that you're going to do, which is why it works to say that you are something. You're kind of like trying to figure it out. But so that's kind of a baseline assumption, is that you kind of know if you're here to interview to be a graphic designer, you know how to be a graphic designer. I still want to see examples of your work. It's not going to be a very long process. Show me your top 10 best things that you've ever done that are a variety of options or genres or whatever. But I want to know that we're going to be able to have a really healthy conversation, that I can come in the morning and be like, hi, we have to design an entire concert today. I am going to need a couple of options. Tracy's going to need to really like how she looks in these things. Here are some things to look for with that. And to have you be able to not only listen to me, accept what I'm saying, but give me good advice without any ulterior motive other than the health and goal of our universal movie. So those are the main qualities. Whatever you are applying for is about being a team member and personable and approachable.
So here's another question for you, Theresa. Zachary Bernstein says that I am interested in entering the realm of production design, but I often struggle with drawing. I was just wondering how much of your work involves the drawing process, or if it is necessary to be a good production designer.
Totally not necessary at all. What you need to be able to do is communicate your concept. So a lot of times production designers do collages, for lack of a better description. I make massive, I should have brought one over here, but massive Bibles, bound printed out books that have every single character, every single location for every single character, a super tight color palette. Every single person that is interacting with my art department gets this bound thing at the beginning of a project. No one steps outside of it. These are the rules, no matter what project I'm on. And I do draw. I do like to have that be part of it. But the truth is that things move so fast that I rarely get to do anything that I would be proud of or excited about. It's very quick. So don't worry about that. What you need to know how to do is read an architectural drawing. If you can read an architectural drawing and talk to people about where a window goes, how high it should be, where you'd like the light to come in from somewhere, what the blocking of a scene would be, where you'd need a door or whatever it is, that's really the crucial skill. But as far as you doing the drawing yourself, I don't find it necessary.
Thank you. Jasmine Caradu asks, I have a question for John. I see you have worked on About Time, which is probably one of my favorite rom-coms. I'm about to move to London and continue my career there, so I was wondering if you have any insight on how the film industry works over there, and or what differences you found between an American and a British set. Thank you.
That's a good question. About time, like, I honestly, like, I didn't know that much about making movies in the United States when I made About Time, because I had only done indie movies, and that was like the first like studio movie I ever did. Things were very different. Um, uh, you know, all the terminology was different. They made fun of me every single day, you know, because I would say, can we put all those carts on the sidewalk? And they'd be like, you mean the trolleys on the pavement? And like, it was hard to, like, at first to learn all that stuff. You know, I mean, it's generally the same. I think it's like in the like lighting and grip realm, it's very different. Like your gaffer is kind of does things that your key grip would do here. Your key grip is more of like a dolly grip with like some other responsibilities. I really like the way that they work. Like, it was really good for me at the time, like, because, you know, it seemed more like making an indie film than what like making a studio film. What I know of that now, like, is you know, very different. I think it's non-union, I believe. So I don't know if that means that it's easier or not to get into the business. I know it's very hard to get into certain things here just because, you know, you have to start in, you know, on like indie stuff, or you have to start working for free really, and then start getting paid a little bit working on indie things that are non-union, and then smaller union things. And then, you know, you just have to like sort of work your way through that. But for the most part, I mean, you know, like, you're making a movie, there's no, like, for what I do, I don't feel like there's any rules to what that is. Like, I'm just making the choices that I'm making, and doing it the way that we do it. And I find that I've worked in so many different countries and so many different cities that it's always different, you know. I mean, I think working in London was way more like working here than working in Japan was. Like, you know, I made a movie in Japan, and like, you know, I didn't even speak the same language as a lot of the members of the crew, or we would have like a, you know, English speaking crew member who would translate to everybody else and things like that. But I think it's different everywhere, and you just sort of get used to it, and you like, you know, and that's kind of like the like fun of the experience too, is that you're like, you know, like seeing how everybody does things differently. Like, even just the way that they pack the trucks, like, I'm always interested in that. Like, I'm like going out to the trucks and being like, how do you fit everything? Like in Japan, especially, like, how do you guys fit everything into these small trucks? Like, they have like the tiniest trucks and they're so neatly packed, and like, you know, and then just like culturally, like, you know, like, oh, I'm not supposed to drink coffee on set here. Like, you know, like, I'm so used to, you know, being an American, like, where I'm just like walking around with a cup of coffee all day, and like, I don't know. That's the interesting. Anywhere you go, things are different, and like, it's so nice to be able to. That's such a great thing about this job, is you just experience it.
This is also really cute because, like, who knows what any kind of filmmaking is. Like, we're pretending like everything's going to be the same, but it's not.
Yeah. I mean, even here, like, you can, you know, like, you do 3 different movies in New York, and everything's different. It's just, you know, it just really, every production's different. Yeah.
Okay, so we have time for just one more question, and I think this is a fun one. Are there experiences at Columbia that you had that you found helped you once you were out in the industry?
Oh my gosh. The thing that makes Columbia kind of famous amongst filmmakers here or anywhere is that we're very technically aware of how a set works. Like, way more than other film students are, like, without question. Like, Bill Dill told John when he applied to AFI that he wished he could build a train from Columbia to AFI, because Columbia perfectly trains cinematographers to be ready to learn how to tell a story from your heart. you already know all of the stuff. You come in as like a prepared camera person, and he's there to show you how to implement that. And I think that that's true for every discipline at Columbia. I learned so much. I wasn't even trying to be a traditional like live action filmmaker until 2 years in. And I still came in by far with the biggest set of skills to my class at AFI, just because of the nature of Columbia. They want you to make movies all of the time. They give you the access to the gear at any point. Like, that is so huge. I come back to that in my mind and life, like, constantly.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I learned at Columbia that is, you know, still with me is that you just learn, you have to learn how to work with people. Like, this is a collaborative art form, and like, you know, I am, you know, generally like not like, at least when I started Columbia, I was not like the person that talked to strangers, you know, like, and like, you know, and I would sort of kept to myself, and you know, like I really did learn like just how to work with other people. You have to throw yourself into that environment, and I think you can make of it what you want. Like, you can do all your student films like all by yourself and do everything and totally get by and get through. But if you want to work in, you know, the film industry, you have to like put yourself out there and be able to work with other people and learn how to work as a crew and learn how to collaborate, learn how to, like, I think that like just working on so many films too, like just learn how to listen to people too. Like you know, it's not all about you all the time. It's like you need to, and you need to like do it a lot so that you can make mistakes, and you know, whether those be like technical mistakes or personal mistakes or whatever, that's what you just have to learn how to do it. And you have to do it. That's how you learn, is by doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a terrific note to end on, and we are a little bit over time, so we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much, Theresa and John, for spending this time with us. We are so grateful to have alumni who are willing to share their time and talent with the Columbia community. I want to thank Anthony Fuentes, our student moderator. You were awesome. Thank you so much. You're terrific. And just a quick shout out to Eric Scholl and Sandy Kirperson from the Cinema and Television Arts Department. It was great to collaborate on this. And thanks to our wonderful, terrific ASL interpreter, Jess Fogel. And of course, many, many thanks to our audience. Please be on the lookout for more webinars like this, hosted by Alumni Relations and CATV and the Career Center. The next one coming up is going to be on July 20th, and it is an alumni masterclass called Why Unions Matter. And I did see some questions in the Q&A. Sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but there were some questions about unions, so definitely be sure to tune into that one. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Guleserian.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, good to see you too. All right, good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.